You see all this poetry I'm writing here? I'm a poet. Yeah, so you have this one. It's the first book. It's literally entitled The First Book. It's called FAMS. It's Food, Forest, Foraging, Hunting, Anti-Fragile Modern Society. In elementary school, we were fighting every day coming home because they get slapped. It's the fact that you whacker than whacker. He get paper because he a copy machine. The only way you getting paper if you copying me. Welcome to the Dre and Smiley, the Inner Circle Podcast. We have another great guest for you guys today.
Oh, Dre, I'm so excited. We have Elohim. Elohim grew up in New Jersey. His mother was told by an angel that she would birth his siblings and himself. She was always a spiritual origin waiting for him. His mother's side is dominated by preachers, pastors, ministers, builders of church, and spiritualists. His father's side of the family is grounded in farms, immigration, and warriors. Elohim has seen many things. Some you would not believe, and others you would. But he made it through the roller coaster ride called the school and learned a lot about himself by learning a lot about people. He acted in plays and dance recitals, so he's an actor and a teacher. He performed poetry more times than you could count. He became president and founder of multiple organizations and won many competitions and prizes. After graduating from the Lincoln University, he found himself teaching in the inner city. Eventually, he got married, had some children, started some businesses, which has finally given him the time to fulfill his God-given mission. He's also the bestseller of 2 books. Elohim, my first question is, when do you sleep? It's like you maximize all of your life minutes. When do you sleep? But before you get into that, the Majesty part, are you a line of royalty, or explain that part about it if you can?
Yeah, I wouldn't say, I would say everybody, because how history goes is technically, like, whether you're black, you're white, it's probably connected to Majesty because they have so many wives, but
Right.
but I meant it in the sense that when I started studying, my history, I was like, man, these people are so awesome. They're so great. And I felt like, they were royal in their own right. And so that's what I meant by Majesty.
And the reason why I asked that way, we had a lady on our show maybe about 6 months ago. She was really granddaughter of a Ghanaian king.
Wow.
So her lineage, she's part of course, they had a lot of wives, or I don't know if they had a lot of wives, but she said that her grandfather was the king of a tribe in Ghana. And I was like, wow. So I was thinking you might be connected, but
No.
coming back, coming back to you published 2 books. Can you talk about your books and what are they about, and what was the catalyst or motivation for writing these books?
Yeah, so you have this one. It's the first book. It's literally entitled The First Book. And that one, so I always say that because I have 2. And so I'll say the first book, they're looking for another title. I'm like, no, literally the first book. Right? Literally.
Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Yeah. First rule of marketing.
Exactly. In this book, it honestly, I didn't expect it to do anything. It just came to me. It was spiritually, I get these things, and I don't like to call them, people like today call them like uploads. I don't like to, or downloads. I don't like to refer to myself as like some type of digital thing. But I get these messages that I got to write down, and so I just wrote it all down, and I told people about it, and it just went crazy. It just resonated with people, and everybody loved it, and my social media blew up and everything. And so, I always I just had to do it. It was something that was burning in me. And the only way I could stop the burning was to put it down, and I had to release it. And so I always say to people, this is like from my higher self to everybody else. And I feel like it's meant for everybody, specifically for people who are, trying to change the world or here to change the world. And then there's this one. This one is the latest one. It's been huge. It's called FAMS. It's Food, Forest, Foraging, Hunting, Anti-Fragile Modern Society. And the baseline of this book, this is also connected to my mission, my spiritual mission, which is pretty much to create something new here on earth. It sounds wild when somebody just says it like this, but pretty much the premise of that book is civilization, especially as you know it, is not what we think it is. It's more like a zoo, it's more like a prison. Um, and that as long as humans are a part of this, it's going to not only suck the earth dry, but if you really notice, it sucks humans dry. And you were talking about, earlier, like, man, what time do you get? And, we don't realize that we're not really made to work 9 to 5s. We're not really made to be working these jobs. And so the book kind of gets really deep into that, to the science of it, to the spirituality of it, to the history of it all. And so, yeah, those are the two books. And they've resonated with people, and so they've been spreading like wildfire.
That's great. So the obvious follow-up question is, where can our listeners purchase your books? Where's the best place for them to get them from?
The best place would be to go to my website, which is www.thephilosophyoforder.com. But you can also just Google it. It'll pop up. But the reason why it's better to go there is because, us as authors, they put out free versions. And to be honest, those free versions that get put out, we don't get paid as much from. But if you this is anybody who has Audible or Kindle, but if you get the free version from that author's link, then they get paid a commission for the people who sign up with that platform.
Okay.
And so you can get it. I mean, you literally just Google my name, they'll all pop up. But if you go to the website, it helps out a lot that I literally can take that money and put it towards the FAMs that we're already trying to build across the world. So
great. So as I listen about the content of each book, what seems to come to mind for me is the impact your mother's side of the family has had on you. I'm sure your father has as well, but you mentioned how your mother's side was very spiritual, that sort of thing. Talk to me about the influence your mother's family and your mother has had on you and your life as a whole.
A tremendous influence. I mean, when I was a kid, whatever my mom said, and my dad too, was like law to me in my brain. And spiritually, so it was twofold. On one side, it was always awesome to grow up in a house that was very into just God and spirituality. I have, a lot of Christians in my family, a lot of Muslims in my family. I also have people who are just spiritual in general, who understand Buddhism, Hinduism. And so I always got a good, share of different religious and cultural beliefs and spiritual beliefs. So on that side, it was extremely positive. But one thing I can say that wasn't so positive is that a lot of times when you have a child like myself, and you have a lot of kids like this who are, some people call them sensitives. They're like sensitive to anything spiritual. They might see a couple things when they're growing up. They might have a really unordinary, childhood. And what a lot of us do is things that we don't understand or are a mystery, we call it the devil. And so just on one side, as it was awesome to get all this, about God and prayers and meditations and things like that, it was also terrifying to me because, when you're told everything that you see or experience or dream that's a little different is the devil, it gets pretty scary pretty quick for a kid.
Sure.
So there was always two sides to that. Yeah. But it was a tremendous influence. And my mother in particular, what I always can say about her is no matter how weird the things that I saw growing up, she was the only one who never made me feel like it wasn't real. Because when you tell a kid who's seeing things, right, that are spiritual, whether it's spirits, whatever you want to call it, entities, and you say to that kid, you're not seeing that. That's fake. It's all in your head. It's nothing more isolating than people telling you that it's fake and it's not real when you're experiencing these things. And my mother never did that. She would always say, you need to pray on it. You need to think about it. Well, and she was always more supportive of it, of the reality of it. So I've
nurturing.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. So in contrast, your father's side was more the warriors, the farming, immigration. Talk about your dad a bit and how his side of the family has impacted your life.
Yeah, so my father also has a lot of Muslims on his side. It's a very interesting story. So we all stem from Yaqub. Yaqub is my great grandfather, who came over from Jamaica. Now, no one, he wasn't, he's very old, he was very old school, so he didn't tell people a lot about his past. You knew something happened that wasn't so good. We don't know what happened, but it was over in Jamaica, and he came over here to start over, and he bought up massive amounts of land out in New Jersey. And he had a family. He met a woman who's my great grandmother, Augusta. She was Native American, white and black, but she went by Native American, and so they had a lot of children. You know, my grandfather's generation, and so they were all brought up on the farm, all just on hard working, growing up on the farm. But Yaqub, as much as he was about family and keeping the family together, he was a very hard man, if that's the best way I could describe it. And he wasn't nurturing at all. And unfortunately, a lot of his sons didn't want to be around him when they grew up.
Wow.
And so they left they said, forget farming. We want to get into trucking. And so the whole family got into trucking, repairing cars and things like that. And so we end up being in this place called Longside, New Jersey, where most of the Alis are to this day. And so there's a lot of agriculture there. And the warrior side, the reason why I say warriors is because you have a lot of fighters on my dad's side. They're, my mom's side, they're very churchy and spiritual. They're very also, I don't know how to describe it without sounding a certain type of way, but they're a certain kind of, black folk, right? And my dad's side is the other kind of black folk, and so a lot of fights, but you learn a lot from that side, a lot of a lot of hard but awesome lessons. And as hard as my dad's side is, and as much as we're fighting, and it was also that camaraderie that we are the Alis and we always got each other's back no matter what happens, and so but Yaqub was in the Nation of Islam, and when he came over, he actually met Elijah Muhammad, and but what happened was, see, he was a different kind of Muslim because he came from Jamaica, and so Muslims in Jamaica could be a little different, and so, so for example, they have certain traditions that they mix in. Just like in Africa, we have some people who are Muslim, but they have also a lot of African traditional religion mixed into that Islam tradition. You had similar things going on in Jamaica where a lot of them were like Maroons. A lot of them had these certain beliefs about things. And one of those beliefs were that, they could, have pig farms. Now, a Muslim is not allowed to even touch nor sell pig.
So how do you have a pig farm?
And so they came to him and they told him, the nation came, they said, listen, brother, you cannot have a pig farm. And he was the type of brother who was very prideful. He was like, hey, no man tells me what to do. I'm allowed to do what I want. I'm a Muslim, I have a Quran, I practice it. He said, hey man, you cannot be in the nation and have a pig farm. So he said, I'm leaving then. And so he leaves the nation. And so they kept passing on the Muslim names, Ali, Rahim, Elohim, Salim. There's so many Ureems in my family, but not everybody's Muslim. But they still continue that tradition of passing down a Muslim name because Yaqub was Muslim in Jamaica, but he also joined the nation. So they try to keep some of those traditions going. But the funny thing is, they all still cook. Most of them still are big on cooking pork as I was growing up. So it's very interesting. It's very funny.
It's kind of like that balance of, it's interesting is a good word. I'm going to pass over to Smiley here. I just want to share a thought. You I think are fortunate in that you had those two sides to influence your growth and development, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes, we're just raised as being, either not passive, but just caring, kind, and nurturing. And that's kind of who you are, defines your entire existence. Or you're raised as being, tough and hard and, the warrior, nobody's going to step on my shoes. Now I'm ready to fight. And that's kind of your existence. So that's how you move through life. For you, having both sides influence your development, I think is powerful in that you're able to tap into each side as you learn how to do that when it's needed. Is that fair to say? And if so, talk to me about that.
That's fair to say, and I've never put it that way. But it was very. My wife always says my life is full of extremes, and she's like one
Mm,
side, this, two sides, and it was like that, and I was able to do that growing up, and I think they did enable that because the funny thing is, when my mother moved out alongside, we moved to a place called Pine Hill, New Jersey. New
mm,
Jersey. She thought that it was the way it looked was like it was a nice suburban place, but it was like one of those suburban places that was very mixed. So you had like, the kids, the black kids who moved from the inner cities all the way out in the apartments in Pine Hill, but you also had the quote unquote, that's what they called them, like white trash, but they're not white trash. I don't,
mm,
but I'm just saying that's what they called them. The ghetto black people, the white trash people, right over there. Then you had the people in the center. That's where I lived at, where it was just kind
mm,
of all mixed in. And then people who lived by the schools, who were the like prestigious, the kids of the sheriff or the mayor and stuff
mm,
like that. And in the middle was mixed up. Like you got your
mm,
bike stolen, you got your house aid, people got jumped. It was,
mm,
so that was also mixed. But being from my father's side, which I was also always grateful for, it was like this whole pride thing. Like, hey man, you're Ali, so you don't let nobody punk you. So like you said, so I was able to pull those out in moments, and it was very racist in that area. But me and my brother actually for the first, I want to say first 6 months at that school, in elementary school, we were fighting every day coming home because we were being called the N word, knuckle draggers. We had no idea what this stuff was at the time, and so we had to fight, coming home. So yeah, it was definitely a balance. And my mom's side was so big on education. Like it's not even an option to not, to not do college on that side. So I didn't want to, but they pushed me there, and I'm very grateful that they did actually. So
Would you say that you're living in the situation where you and your brother had to grow up and you had so many different communities and different socioeconomic classes within the same area? Do you think that fueled your passion to be an actor and a teacher, or did it help you in those roles? And can you tell us about how you go from being an actor or a teacher, or was it from a teacher to being an actor? How did that work?
yeah, so I grew up, and my mother put me in all performing arts because she thought I was so talented, and so that's how I ended up winning so many competitions. I was a dancer, I was an actor, I was a rapper, I was a singer. I just did, all sorts of things, and so yeah, I was definitely acting first. I was acting as a teenager. I was in a theater company, where I would perform in plays. I performed in plays at my school. I really got out of acting when I got into college and focused more on my poetry, my music, and more so on dancing. Uh, Starting organizations. But yeah, growing up, it was all acting, it was all singing, it was all rapping, it was all dancing, all sorts of performing arts. And in fact, the audio version of these two books, people always talk about how like the best audio books they ever heard. And I always credit my mother and my father because my mom would buy me a bunch of music editing programs, software, video editing programs. My father used to pay for studio sessions to make sure I went to the studio every weekend in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. So, that actually enabled me, later in my life. And a funny story, real quick, is that my mom, when I was younger, she used to say, "Man, you're so good at writing poetry and rapping. That means you probably, and you're so good at telling stories, you probably should be an author." But as a kid, anything where my mom would suggest to be something, I felt like it was like a negative thing for whatever reason. Like she was like boxing me out. I'm like, Mom, I'm much more than an author. I'm
Yeah,
not
right.
writing books.
Yeah, right. I'm way more than an author. What do you mean? An
Yeah,
author? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You see all this poetry? You see all this poetry I'm writing here?
yeah, exactly.
I'm a poet.
So we always look back and we laugh at it because it's like, well, now
Yeah,
you have all these books out and things. So yeah. So that's
that's
how
funny.
that worked out.
No, that's awesome. So when you were acting, and so you mentioned that you have a business now. So is your business in the entertainment realm? Is your business in the academic realm, or is it totally something different?
It's different. It's so the so my business has started when I was a teacher. I always told myself I grew up in dog breeding, so I always told myself that I was going to breed dogs when I got older, and so I started breeding Rottweilers. when I was a teacher, and I mean, like really breeding them, like importing dogs from other countries and things like that, and having like super high quality dogs, and so that enabled me to invest in other things like education and marketing, and so I also started doing online marketing, and so at one point, so I was teaching, I was doing marketing, and I was breeding, and what happened was, you know how they say you can't serve two masters, man. It just became so much work to try to do both because as a teacher at the school I was teaching at, Statesman is we were saying earlier is where I got this shirt. It's an all boys school. It's awesome school in DC. I mean, really incredible. I've never been at a better school. I never taught at a better school, and they taught me so many things. But one thing they demand. The reason why they get so many outcomes is because, man, if you're going to be a teacher at Statesman, you are going to work, right? The kids come first in all aspects of everything, and you are going to work. And I could not do both. And so that's when I had to actually let go of teaching so that I could continue to do the things that I felt like I was meant to do. Because the whole point of opening the businesses weren't even just to make money. It was I wanted to be financially free. I wanted to have the ability to do what I wanted to do. And so I was like, okay, I guess I got there a little earlier than expected. I believe I was 28, 29. And I was just like, okay. And so that's what happened.
Is your business dog breeding now? Was that the second master, or is
And,
your
and
business writing books?
it's marketing and it's breeding. I mean, technically the books are doing very well, but I really use that back toward the books. Like I really take everything from FAMs. Like I said, that's my God given mission. And I put it all back into FAMs, like, trying to, buy out land, trying to buy out acres, putting it back into the books to do better and things of that nature. So yes, it actually is doing very well. But the other two businesses are what I live off of, what I sustain myself off of, me and my family.
Would you define yourself as a real estate person as you're buying land to do the farming, or it's just something that's part of the mission? Is you just have to buy a lot of land, and are you just one last question, and I'll turn it to Andre. Are you concentrated only in Jersey, DC, Northeast, or are you all over the country with your vision?
That's funny because I actually moved out of the East. I live in Oklahoma now. And
You're in
actually,
Oklahoma.
yeah, I live in
Oklahoma?
Oklahoma. Yeah,
Oklahoma?
Oklahoma.
yeah.
When's the last time I heard that state referenced?
You're the first person on our podcast from Oklahoma.
Dude, sell me, hey, sell me on Oklahoma, dog. There's a reason you're there. There's a reason you're there. Tell me all about it. Tell me all about it.
Yeah, man. Listen, I used to come up here every summer to see my grandmother. She
Okay.
lived up here in Oklahoma. I used to catch snakes and everything. I mean, it's all types of things out here as a kid.
Yeah.
My mom
Yeah.
hated it. Just to let you know, my mom hated it. She's like, stop letting him. Don't let him go out by himself. My son, he'll go out and he'll catch animals, right?
Right,
And my
right,
grandma,
right.
she gave me these gloves and she tells me like, oh, and she gives me this book. She says, I'm just going to tell him, my mom's name is Perinda. I'm going to tell him, Perinda, look in this book. Do not get these poisonous snakes. Here are the non-venomous snakes, and it tells you all about the snakes in this book. And my mom was like, why would you give him that book? He's going to look for the poisonous snakes. That's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I did. I went out trying to find the most. I thought that I was the crocodile hunter. Like, that's what I thought.
Okay.
I thought, I was out there saying, "Oh, she's a beaut." I was doing all that. I thought I was a crocodile hunter. But,
Elohim Dundee.
Elohim Dundee. I like it. I like it.
Right.
Yeah, I thought I was a crocodile hunter, but
I love it.
So I had to come up here. So I was as well as the dog breeding business was doing, as well as the marketing was doing, my credit score is not good. So I was trying to get in. I was trying to, get into another apartment. My last apartment said, hey, we want to sell the house. The market was going up. We want to sell the house. So I was looking for another place, and we ended up getting this spot. It was terrible. It was just like this because no other place would take us with the credit score. I mean, I offered. Can you believe I offered? I don't know. Maybe they thought I was selling drugs because I offered I said, man, I'll pay 6 months rent in advance, right? And they were still saying no. I was like, they must think I'm
what?
Yeah, I don't know. I was like, I don't know. I'm young and I'm black. Maybe they think I'm selling drugs. But so we end up, my grandmother has a house out here. She has 2.5 acres. She doesn't live in it. She was just like, look, you guys can go over there and stay there. And we're like, dang, Oklahoma, that's a right? Same thing y'all doing. Like, yeah, hold on, hold on.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we looked at the pros of it, and we got out here. Now, as far as me like buying land, just in general, New Jersey, especially New Jersey, man. A lot of these places, like the laws, and you trying to do what you want to do on land, the
Yeah.
restrictions are crazy.
Strict.
The pricing in Maryland and Virginia, because it's near DC, is insane in Maryland. I mean, they're charging for land as if they're mansions built on it. So, out there in Maryland. So we came out here, it's a lot more affordable. And so this kind of gets into the premise of my book. So I'm not buying anything to necessarily for a real estate purpose or to farm. The reality is, and this goes deeper into history, that FAMS is the solution to this problem that we've been in. And what we call civilization, right, which is just something that depends on agriculture in order to expand out, is unsustainable. And we kind of live in a world where we just kind of don't care anymore. But we all hear the stories. We know the wildfires. We know the oil's running out. We know all the things, all the problems. But we kind of, we're busy. So we kind of just go like, yeah. But, civilizations only have, I think, a lifespan of about 300 to 400 years. And we've been doing civilizations only for about 10,000 years. Prior to that, people were, hunter-gatherers. Now, when people hear about hunter-gatherers, the first thing they think in their mind are stupid, primitive people. That wasn't the case. A lot of your ancient monuments was created by hunter-gatherers. It just means that you depend on hunting and gathering for most of your food. And it turns out that if you are a hunter-gatherer, then you're going to be healthier, you're going to be stronger, you're going to be more fit. And you actually get more time off. A lot of people used to think that hunter-gatherers, spend all day and will barely get food, but that's just not the case. Humans are just so much smarter than that. And so what they would do is they would, obviously the men, most of the men would hunt, most of the women would gather. And they would bring back the food that, obviously, but they would only do that for about 3 hours a day. The rest of the day would be spent on inventing things, playing, gathering, having a good time. That's why when they study hunter-gatherers, not only are they healthier than us physically, but they found out that they are actually healthier than us mentally. Suicide is at 0, cancer is at 0, heart disease at 0. They're living, and then the myth was that they were only living up to be 30 years old. Come to find out, hunter-gatherers live between the ages of 70 and 80s, just like most of us do today. And the reason why that myth got pushed was because today, right, if somebody's pregnant and they have a baby that's deformed, then the woman's going to know ahead of time. And either she's going to get treatment for that baby or they're going to give her the option to abort it early, right? And so hunter-gatherers don't have that. So what happens is they'll have those babies sometimes that can come out deformed, or maybe they're premature or something's off. Those babies are going to die. So what they did was all those babies that died with hunter-gatherers, they took that infant mortality and they averaged it in with the lifespan of just hunter-gatherers overall. And so it took it from 60s, 70s, and 80s and reduced it down to 40s and 30s. And so that's why people believe that hunter-gatherers lived up to be 30s, because they're averaging in. I say all that to say that FAMS is about how can we get back to that lifestyle without and be free without giving up, because technology is not bad. It's just that you need to have technology that's good for you and good for the earth. So that's what FAMS is. It's about getting back to that. And so you're using a food forest. And so we're getting this land because you got to, instead of creating a farm, farms take from the soil, they deplete the land. You have to kill everything around it in order to grow your food. And it's unsustainable because since the soil's getting depleted, you kept having to go further and further out. What a food forest does, it mimics a forest. And if you didn't know, the Amazon rainforest is actually one of the oldest food forests on the planet created by humans. And anybody can look that up. Hunter-gatherers created the Amazon rainforest. And what they would do is they would take things that they liked, medicinal plants, plants good for building homes, food, and they would go and they would recreate the soil and plant that in there. Therefore, creating a forest that's plentiful of all the things that you would need to survive. So instead of doing that through roads of agriculture, you will grow a forest that can feed as many people as possible. And that's what FAMS in a nutshell is about, trying to pretty much be technologically advanced hunter-gatherers, getting back to that nature. And so you could be free from bills, mortgages, unhealthy eating, and you can just depend off the land, and you can still have technology, So that's what it's pretty much all about. That's what we're doing.
And that's where Oklahoma comes in. Your goal is to why the reason you're there is to kind of start practicing what you're preaching, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah.
To practice that.
Out, yep.
Okay.
Well, we
Okay.
were looking originally at Virginia, and we were over. So it was between Virginia and Oklahoma,
Hmm.
and the people we were talking to in Virginia just didn't work out. So we are like, look, man, we're already in Oklahoma, and there's a lot of affordable land out here, and it's good weather for it. So we decided like, why not? We got
Hmm.
chickens right now. You might have heard my rooster earlier. We got
I
a bunch
did
of
hear a
chickens
I
running
rooster.
did.
around.
As soon as you said Oklahoma, I said, "Oh, okay, that makes sense now." It all came together.
I, I was like, I've been all over Jersey, Cherry Hill, Mount Laurel.
I never heard of chicken.
Apparently, I've never heard chickens. I've never heard a chicken
Or-
in Jersey. So,
I'm like,
That
was
is
that?
funny.
Yeah, that's dope, though. That's dope. I like that. I
that
like that.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It,
I have a clear sense of your mission, and it just makes sense, right? When you think about where we are as a culture, across the globe, really, but here in the U.S. in terms of how distracted we are by everything.
Oh yeah.
It was interesting how as horrible as COVID was in so many ways, how it did give us a
Hmm.
chance to pause and
Yeah.
reflect. And I think during that
Yeah.
time, people made so many pivots because there was the only time they had to reflect and say, whoa, am I
Yeah.
living my best life? What's my mission? And am I working towards fulfilling that? So yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think your missions is necessary and needed. Tell me this: what's the timeline on this mission you have here, and where are you on that timeline? So is it like a 30-year,
Mhm.
plan, and you're 10 years in, that sort of thing? Where are you there?
Yeah. It takes 4 years just to build a FAMS in general. So we have people out in different places. Somebody in Australia building the FAMS. We got people in Africa. Most people are in the States though, and we're on phase one, which is pretty much trying to get people you could do it with. We're a little further than that. We're on Me and my wife. We're on phase two, which is buying out the land and things of that nature. But yeah, it takes about 4 years to build FAMS because you gotta build the food forest, and that takes planting it, and it takes 4 years
Mm.
to pretty much mature into a state where you can eat off of it without depleting it. And so it's food forest, foraging, hunting. You got to learn how to hunt. You got to know how to forage. You got to know what to eat, what not to eat. Right, you got to know how to cut an animal open. A lot of us are so detached from that, right? I remember telling my daughter when I was like, I was looking at the chicken, I was like, yeah, we eat that. She's like, people kill that and they eat it. I'm like, yeah, we're so detached from it that you don't
Yeah.
realize that thing that you're eating, it was alive,
Yeah.
it was running,
Right.
and somebody grabbed it and they killed it, and now you got it on
Yeah.
your plate. But we're detached from that. And then anti-fragile, and the goal is for the societies to be anti-fragile. So you have fragile things, you have robust things, you have anti-fragile things. Something that's fragile, it breaks easy when it's introduced to chaos. Something that's robust, it barely changes like a rock when it's introduced to chaos. But something that's anti-fragile, like your body, like I always say God, the universe, existence, whatever you want to call it, the most high, makes things anti-fragile, which is when bad things happen, your body actually gets stronger. If you were introduced to a lot of sicknesses as a child, your immune system will be stronger as an adult. And so you want a society that's more anti-fragile, not a society like ours, where the top 1%ers, if they make a bad mistake, a bad bet in the stock market, the entire thing comes crumbling down. That's fragile. So you want something
Mhm.
anti-fragile. And then modern society, again, you want something that has technology so you want to still be able to live a life of technology, where you're comfortable. Like, I should still be able to communicate with you in these societies. I should still have air. I should still be able to live a comfortable life at the same time. And so it takes about 4 years to do all of that, but then it's going to take 10 years in total for your food forest to be like a real forest, meaning it's completely sustained itself. You don't have to take care of it. You don't
You
have to do
froze.
anything. 4 years
He
is when it
froze.
matures to a
Yeah.
point where you can eat off of it. And 10 years is when your food forest is at a state where you don't have to do anything. It's just going to grow and be its own ecosystem and provide food for you indefinitely.
Is a portion of that mission, the model, living off the grid?
Oh yes, yes, yes. They will be off the grid. Now you can have the option on FAMs, so you can be off the grid while having the option to plug into the grid. That's always an option. But yeah, the whole goal is like, for example, we talked about it earlier. Like, what matter if it's 10 years from now or 100 years from now. Civilizations are not built to last. People don't like to accept this, but it's just a reality of history. It's just the way it goes. Every civilization has about 4 phases before crisis, and then crisis is either going to collapse or it's going to rebuild itself. Is how it normally goes. And so fam should be able to withstand that. A lot of this, if you look at, hunter gatherers out, let's say in Africa, when a famine happens and people who depend on farming, they're all dying. They're starving to death. The hunter gatherers don't even know that they're starving to death because their food is not dependent upon growing crops out of the land. It's dependent upon just the life on earth. So, the whole goal of FAMs is, even if things go bad and everything breaks down, you're not isolated from civilization while it's here, but if civilization does crumble, you're also not suffering. Everything for you hasn't really changed much. And not to get too, because I studied different, I was a philosophy and religion major. And so in different religions, you often hear about this whole thing where the first people were given an option to live this life or that life. And a lot of people don't actually understand that Adam and Eve, if anybody just goes back and reads it, were actually hunter-gatherers. And when they ate of the fruit, it said the curse was that you will have to till the field, you'll have to work the lands, you'll eat of the bread. It was agriculture. And then if you read it further, the inventor of the cities was Cain. If anybody reads it, the first person who creates cities is Cain. And then what comes not too long after that is eventually Babylon, which is supposed to represent civilization. And you see this kind of constant in a lot of religion. And I think it's deep knowledge that's still passed on through us, which was this thing, what do you call it? Babylon, Egypt, Greece, Rome. These things are going to fall. And that's just a reality of what the state that you're living in. They're going to grow corrupt, and then they're going to crumble down to the ground. And so what we're kind of offering, in a very metaphorical sense, is a way back to the Garden of Eden, where people can live lives where they want to live fulfilled and they can do what they want.
No, I think that's so. Tell me this. I mean, everything you're talking about is so fascinating. The first question is there communities like all over the country or the world with fam? Is it a growing community? And then the second question is, I was so interesting with the forest versus the farm. Can you do that living in a city with your house, or do you need acres? I mean, when you're growing a forest, I mean, I think of the Amazon as like thousands of miles, but when you're looking at a farm, like I can have a garden here. Can I have a garden fam, or a garden variety fam in the back of my house in Tampa, or is it you need land, land, land? How does that work? That's the little dynamics.
Yeah, that's an awesome question, because to answer the first question, we're in like the pioneer phase. So we're at the very beginning. There's people, like there's people across the world right now. We have about 1,000 people in the Discord, about 60 people in the Facebook group, and in both of those groups, people are out there. They're looking for land, or they already bought land, or they started to create their food forest. So everybody's at different phases of it, but it's going to take about 4 years for people to actually be in FAMs. And in regards, I get that question every now and then about the forest. I think it's a great question. The first food forest I created I was living in a townhouse. I had a little tiny backyard. Now it wasn't enough, because I also shared half of it with the dog kennels, and so it was very squished in. So it wasn't enough to feed everybody, but we did eat from it. A lot of tomatoes, a lot of things like that. It was like a little garden. But you can have, it depends on how many people you're trying to feed. So you're trying to feed one person, you can definitely, with a small backyard, if you just make the entire thing, because remember, it grows up. Forests often grow up before they grow out. So there's a lot of vine type things, a lot of like butternut squash, grapes, blueberries, tomatoes. Those things vine up, so it's a lot of space for things like that. A tree in the center, maybe a peach tree or something, but 100% that you can do a food. You can't do FAMs in the city, but you can do a food forest in the city, and there's actually a lot of people who actually do that in the city. So
Hyperponic? Is it hyperponic?
yeah, people do
Like,
that with the you talking about with the
uh,
water, or with the
yeah, with the water and the water, and it has no ground or no dirt. It's just like water or something.
yeah, people do
I
that
saw that on
too.
YouTube.
That's something separate, but
Okay.
yeah, I've seen that, a lot of that, a lot of aquaponics, but yeah, with the
Oh,
food forest,
aquaponic.
it's all about the soil. And so if you want the soil to be black and just very nutritious. A lot of our soil is very like dry. You want to get good soil. And like I said, you start with seeds. You buy a couple plants that are already growing a little bit at Lowe's, Home Depot, wherever people want to get it from. And you start small, but before you know it, it doesn't take long. Literally, if you start in like March, you'll look at your backyard, and if you take care of it, you look at your backyard, and by probably about July, you'll be like, whoa, it already looks like a food forest back here. So it doesn't take too long for it to grow, but it takes 4 years for it to start to being self-sustaining, for you not to have to do anything.
I love that. So two quick questions for you before we head into the final four. One is for those listening to this and that want to join the Discord or any other streaming options they have there, or social media options that exist. What's the best way to participate in this?
Yeah, the Discord is the easiest one to get into. It's right on the website, thephilosophyoforder.com.
Okay.
But the Facebook group's harder to get into because you have to prove that you read the book. So the reason why the Facebook group membership's lower is because we only want people in there that have read the book and who are serious. There's serious people in the Discord, but because it's open to everybody, it's not as people talk about what they want, and that's fine too. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But the FAM's Facebook group is specifically focused on how can we expand this and how can we build this. So if you
Love
want to
it.
get into the Facebook group, just put FAMs in on Facebook. It will pop up first, but you had to have read the book to
Okay.
get in.
Great, great. All right. Next question is: you've shared a lot. You shared a lot, which is all. I mean, I feel like I need to go get the book, both books now, with all you've shared.
Good.
But what's one thing? What's one thing that most people don't know about you that you wish they
Man.
did?
Something that people don't know that I wish they did. One thing, I guess, to the people who, follow me on TikTok and on Instagram, I just want everybody to know, and I say this all the time, is that, and I sound so cheesy, but, I'm just a regular person. And I'm weird, but I'm weird like a lot of weird people are, and what I mean by that is like, you read a book like this, and I always recommend that people read this book first before the first book. But when you read these books, they are, because they're like I said, when I say to people, I was given this by God, I was given this by the source, and some people take it out of context. Um, I just always make it clear, I say it in my books, but I always say it, I'm not claiming to be anybody's prophet or Messiah. I think people can save themselves. I think that God actually speaks to everybody, and that some people are just better at articulating it. Some people are just better at writing it down. And sometimes you need to read what somebody else wrote to say, yo, I was thinking that, I didn't know how to say that, but that's what I've been thinking. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just articulating something that I feel like everybody kind of knows deep down. And so that's something I always stress, because anytime somebody's giving somebody world-changing ideas or perspectives, we have this habit. I always say my number one hero out of all my historical figures has always been Malcolm X. But I always say there was one big mistake Malcolm X made, right? Was that he put Elijah Muhammad on a pedestal that I don't believe that any man should be on, because they're people. And I never want to be on that pedestal. I literally, if anybody, who follows me on social media, if you hung with me for like a week, you would realize I'm still like a kid. I'm very responsible, but I like to have fun. I'm joking a lot. I'm cracking jokes. I'm rapping. Little Wayne around
You're
my
not the
house.
guy. You're not the guy we should be putting on a pedestal. Is what you're saying?
No,
Yeah,
yeah,
regular,
no, yeah,
regular everyday guy. Regular everyday
yeah.
guy.
Look, man. When I finish doing all my fun things, I watch UFC, right? I play video games. I play with my children,
Yeah.
and I rap. So I'm just, so I always want people to know that, most importantly, because the way I
Sure.
make my videos, it can come off like that, but that's just what I'm writing and who I am. So I always want people to know that.
Okay.
That's why I like conversations like this, because
Yeah.
people can see, like, we're just talking, So.
No, we appreciate that. And you know what? I was thinking, I was like, when I'm trying to think of which video, which TikTok I saw that made me reach out to you. And I really appreciate you responding and coming on. And no, that's fascinating. I was like, man, I reach out to, maybe if I see interesting things on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok, and I may reach out to 10 people. 1 out of 10 will respond. I'm just ghosted by the other 9. So when you responded, I was really excited. So thank you. But moving into the final four, with all of your experiences, if you were to have dinner with anyone alive or dead, there's 4 chairs at the table, you're in one. Who would the other chairs?
Now,
Who
I
would
got
be
a
at the dinner
question.
table and why?
Can I speak any language?
Uh-huh. Any language, or you can even add a seat. Or one
You can,
lady was
you
like,
can,
"I want to have dinner by
yeah.
myself. I don't want
You
nobody
can
up in
speak any
seat."
language you
So
want.
whoever you
Yeah.
want, you can.
Hebrew, whatever.
I,
You can speak
I
Swahili.
would talk
Yeah,
to
any
the
language.
very first, and obviously it's a blur line, right? Because the way adaptation works, but the very first human. I just really want to talk to the first, like the first set of humans, man. I just want to ask them questions. I want to, because I just feel
Lucy.
like if I could understand them, then I can understand a lot. You know, if I can understand how the world is, how they're interacting, how their families are, how they're living, I feel like I can understand even more. So I always wanted to talk. I don't care if the first human existed, you know, a billion years ago, or like the fossil worker says, 1.2 million years ago. I just want to talk to that first person and see what they think. You know, their dreams, their desires, you know, what they believe about God. I just want to know stuff like that. You know, what do you think? You know, that's
That's
what I would
one.
talk to.
Who about the other three? The other two tables.
So definitely Malcolm X, as I stated before, I would
Uh,
love just to talk to Malcolm X. You know, he inspired me so much in my life growing up. And, you know, just to speak up for myself and things of that nature is to say the truth. And so definitely Malcolm X. And then it would be people like, you know, pharaohs, like maybe like Akhenaten. You know,
Akhenaten.
he was so weird. He was
Yeah.
you know, he said no to all the other gods. He said there's only one God. His name is Aten, and I am his son. I'm like, that's such a all right. That's such a weird thing to do at that time. And so I
Yeah.
always wanted to see like why was he thinking? He looked weird too. He had an elongated skull, and his children had elongated skulls. He was a very strange guy. And so he had big eyes. I always wanted to talk to him. And I guess the last
was it
I,
was it an Anunnaki?
the Anunnaki, I think that was that's a different king. What's his name? Can't remember his name.
Raj. Okay.
Yeah, the Anunnaki. And then if I could, I guess my last person would be um I actually would like to talk to Michael Jackson. As
Huh.
weird as that sounds, you know, it's out of nowhere. Michael, when I grew up, I didn't tell y'all, but I used to dance like Michael Jackson. That's where my dancing started. I was that little
Okay.
kid, you know. Every now and then you see that little kid with the hat, and you know, he's acting like
Yeah.
Michael. That
The
was me.
red jacket with the zippers.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was deep into the Michael Jackson. I would want to, you know, I would want to. Michael was a very strange person, and a lot of fans get, you know, offended when I say that, but we all know Michael was strange. But I
Yeah.
would like
He's
to,
strange.
I would like to, you know, talk to him about that and see where a lot of that came from. You hear a lot of rumors and stuff. I would like just to sit down and talk to him face to face, and you know, just have some
Awesome.
conversations.
Nice.
Thank
Nice.
you.
What's been your greatest success?
My greatest success by far would have to be, uh, for me, definitely getting married.
Mm.
uh, you know,
Oh, the
definitely
ladies
getting
gonna like
married.
that.
And to the woman I got married to, man, because without going deep into it, I just wasn't the best guy. I don't know how to really say any other type of way from high school through most of college. And at one point, man, I just was like, you know, I was just ready to, at a young age. I remember saying this to my mom. I was like in my early 20s. I said, you know what, mom? I don't think I'm meant to ever get married. I think I'm meant to like be alone. I don't think I'm gonna find a partner or anything. She was like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, mom, I kind of just giving up on it. It's kind of over for that." And so, you know, my wife, I didn't even actually originally. I always thought she was very beautiful, but I didn't want to be with her at the time because I always had this rule against being with like women who like everybody wants. It was just annoying. I never
Mm.
wanted to be another guy that
Yeah.
that you know for her to be like, "No, get out of here."
Right. Right. Right.
So,
Just someone else to say no to.
yeah, exactly. You know, or to be begging like everybody else. I'm like,
Right.
yeah, I'm not
Right.
gonna do
Right.
that.
Right.
But we
Trust
became
me, I'm
friends.
different. I'm different. I'm better than
Yeah,
those guys.
exactly, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So she was just she's just probably my best success because like you know the children we had and she's always been so supportive. You know, like I said, I'm so weird. Like I say, hey man, you know, I told her I said one time I said, yeah man, I feel like God is calling me to quit my job, right? And she said, right? You know, and she said, you know what? So far, your spiritual instincts been on point. I'm just gonna follow you and let you do your thing,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
And so, you know, she's been that type of partner my entire, you know, our entire relationship. And
Yeah.
because of that, I was able to do so much
Yeah.
You know, that a lot of my friends, they were like, bro, my wife would not like it. So,
Right.
I when I originally wanted to get into breeding, I was talking about taking all this money that, I was saving up for business. I'm talking a lot of money, and buying dogs that were in Serbia from somebody in Serbia, and both our parents, our family was like, "What are you doing? What are you talking about?
Serbia
What are you,
dogs.
what are you doing?" And she was with it. She said, "Yeah, let's do this. Let's make sure we do this," and it turned out awesome. So I always said that was just a major success to marry the right person.
Love it.
It's just
Nice.
That's a beautiful story, because I believe my wife would probably say, Smiley, God told me you need to get another job. You only got one job, and my girlfriend's husband got 5 jobs. You
Oh my
slacking.
Yeah. God told me I gotta go. I'm packing my bags.
Yeah.
You can keep the
You need to
job
get
or you
2
can leave
more.
the job. I believe it.
Yeah.
No, that's hilarious.
No, man, you gotta keep her, dog. You gotta keep her.
Yeah, keep her. Awesome.
Yeah.
So the third question is, and think about this one. What is your superpower? What is uniquely you? Meaning, Superman flies, the Hulk has his strength, and the Flash is fast. So, what is Elohim's superpower that is uniquely you?
Yeah, I've been blessed with this ability to see things. I like my brain, and I always used to tell my wife, like, I'll give you an example. And I'm able to do this through my life with my studies, with reading books. But it all started for me with movies. My mom used to do this thing at the beginning of movies. She used to say, like, who could guess the ending? So we're like, so growing up, my brain would just put together stuff. Like, I'll watch a movie, it's just good with patterns. So, like, I'll tell somebody in the first 15 minutes of the movie, to the point where people tell me not to because they say I'm spoiling it. I'm like, yo, I can tell you everything that's about to happen right now. I know this entire thing. And I was able to extrapolate that into just everything. Like, when I study history, when I study religion, when I study, different cultures, like, my brain just has an ability to just put it all together. And then I have what made me really good at teaching was not just the ability to put it together, but to
Articulate it.
give it back in a way that's not only they comprehend it, but it's also entertaining. It's also fun.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a teacher, all of the lessons, I would take the entire curriculum, all the lessons, all the worksheets, and I would make a rap out of everything they needed to know. And not just one of those corny school raps that a lot of teachers like to do.
1 + 1 is 2.
Yeah. So, like, a rap that I would go and listen. How I would start, I would say, tell me all your favorite rappers. And tell me their favorite rappers. And oh my God, these rappers were awful. But I would go and listen to them. Right? They were awful. But I would listen to them, and I would hear the style, the flow, the way they did it. And so I would make songs with all the information, but still with the style. And I would tell them, if you can memorize this song, you're going to get an A on the test. And so you would see my students, at the test, they would be like, we met Egypt. No. Okay.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Write an answer down. So the ability to kind of like easily get that information, but then to be able to give it back in a way that's entertaining and fun, because education, anytime you go to learn about something, why does it have to be so boring?
Yeah.
Jeez, right? Like, I put so much information in this book, but it's told through a story. Like, why just, if I just gave you all the information that's in here, you wouldn't make it through page 30 because you'd be bored. But if you could make a way for people to be like, man, this is a good story while you're also learning, then it's easier to get through. So that's my personal superpower, I believe.
That's a gift.
Awesome.
That's a gift.
That is a gift.
I think all of us have been in classes, math, the boring ones, math, or, depending on if you love math or not, I don't know, where whatever it is, geography, whatever, chemistry, where it's like, oh my God, I can't take this anymore. And then we've had those teachers where it's the worst class ever, but you can't wait to get to it because they have been able to share the information with you in a way that's palatable to you, right? So the fact you did that with your students, I'm sure they're like, oh, he's so cool, he understands us type thing. They probably didn't have those words, but you guys were probably tight. Tell me this: you mentioned that you did poetry, you did, and you rapped and all that. They usually go hand in hand. Every poet isn't a good rapper, but these usually go hand in hand. Think back about your first rap, or the one rap where you're like, "Oh, this is dope," and you got a lot of confirmation, right? And
Yeah.
if you're comfortable, share a line with us. This is just to
Yeah.
bless us with some of your skills there. And then once you
So
finish, I have another question for you. Once you finish that, yeah.
okay, so the first one, my mom. Again, one thing I always love about my mother is she was very honest. She used to say that like if somebody loves you, they'll tell you the truth, right? Now we didn't always like that, but she was
You're
like,
like, can you love me a little bit less, Mom?
tell me a
Yeah.
little
I don't need all that love.
yeah, she was like, so when it came to my music, I was originally singing and stuff, and then I want to do rap. I liked rapping. I was like, man, I want to rap. And mom would like, she would tell me, well, I don't really like rapping. I think you're a good singer, and she would say that. And so one day, so anytime my mom said she liked something, you knew she meant it because she was always honest. And so one day I made a rap with this beat maker she gave me. Oh my god, I was like in fifth grade. It was
Okay.
such a long time ago, but it was like it went like I got that vibe to the music, make you wanna go stoop. Got that vibe to the music, and then the rap was like don't you know I got a vibe to the music. Go stupid. It was like something like that, but it was like this
Okay.
kid rap, and my mom's face lit up when she heard it, and she said, "This is good," and
Okay.
I was like, "It is." She was like, "Yeah." She was like, "This is good." Like I can imagine this playing on the radio. I was like, "What,
Okay.
really?" And
Yeah.
so you couldn't tell me nothing after that. I was the greatest
Right.
rapper of all time. Mom said my rap should be on the radio.
You like
So
Jay
that
Z
was
who?
yeah. I'm like, bro, I'm the best
Mic
rapper
drop.
alive.
All right.
And
I
so
love it.
and then so that was for my mom. For my peers, it was a different rap. I wrote this
Okay.
rap. I was in high school, and people heard it, and every time I rapped it, they always asked me, "You wrote that?" Right? It was the best compliments you can get. You
Isn't
wrote
that
that.
something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that something?
I wrote it. Yeah, exactly. You wrote that? And that one was it went like I'll just do it for you real quick. It's
Yeah.
funny
Yeah.
though, 'cause I would never write something like this now, but I don't care. I'll show.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was it's me Prince with a big surprise when girls come in, I get hips and thighs. Can't stop my friends and I. When I see food, enemies turn shrimp and fry. Hint that I'm the gifted guy. Gifted mind and gifted lines. Shifted, I'm the picnic guy. Please pass my ribs and thigh. Hint is I will take your miss and fly. Who needs a ghost rider? I'm the Casper. Note that my flow might flow right past you. Sleep through the movies. Tired of the actors. She's sweet. I'm around sweet things. I'm a rapper. When it's beef, I'm the Burger King. Call me Donald when I mac her. You ain't running things, I straight lapture. Your ass a disaster. You act like an actor. Get slapped, it's the fact that you whacker than whacker. He get paper because he a copy machine. The only way you getting paper if you copying me. And then something. I was like, I
Yo!
don't even know. Yeah, it was like that.
You
Yeah.
wrote that?
You wrote that?
that?
That was dope.
That was
Yo.
dope, man.
So the way you tied the words together, right? So
Oh,
in terms, and, for me and Smiley and probably you too, being from living in Jersey and whatnot, every rapper on the radio isn't a good rapper, right? Some of them have this marketability. There's a handful of rappers we can all think of that just had a really good way of, like Eminem, Jay-Z, Tupac, had a really good way of just tying the words together where you're like sucked in and drawn in. The more they go, the more you're drawn in. And you were in high school?
yeah, I was
At
in
the
high
time?
school. I was a freshman, I think, sophomore
Yeah.
freshman.
Wow.
Dope.
Yeah.
Here's the last question. You've written 2 books. Third book's coming, I'm sure. Let's say it was your autobiography. What would the title be?
Phew. The autobiography. What would the title be? That's a good question. It would be that's a good question. Not normally
Okay.
stumped by questions, so that means you asked a really, really good one. But I guess it would have to be something like something like let's get free, or you know or freedom, something of that nature, because that's what my entire life has been about. It's been about nothing but freedom. That's all I've been after. Since I was a little kid, I remember, people say, why don't you want to grow up? I'm like, because y'all don't seem like y'all adults don't seem free. I remember I
They
used
don't
to
seem
say that.
happy. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, man, y'all seem so like I used to love Peter Pan. Cause I'm like, man, he got it right. All these adults, they're all, none of them are free. All, workers. That's how I used to think in my brain. My mom, first time she said, you should get a job. You're a teenager. Mom, I'm not a worker bee. Right.
Love it. Love it.
Wow. Well, man,
So
I want to first thank you first on two fronts. Usually, our podcast guests, Dre will stump them in like the first 7 minutes. So I was getting ready to say, he almost made it through the whole show with no one getting stuff. So don't feel bad. You made it the longest. You made it to the last question. So thank you. But
made it the
Elohim,
longest.
Elohim, I want to tell you, honestly, this has been the most fascinating podcast. And I want to thank you for responding to me, because once again, I don't know which TikTok that you posted that I saw that made me inspired me to write to you or to connect to you. Thanks for responding. Thanks for sharing your time. You're a fascinating person.
Hey man, listen, like just reiterating what Smiley said, it was an incredible time. We appreciate your time. A lot of good information being shared. I'm looking forward to following you and seeing how this evolves.
Yes. And thank you both, honestly. It's been awesome.